everybody. Welcome to the end of 2023 with your friends here at ABA Inside Track, as well as...
I guess this is my turn. Yeah. Hey, everyone. It's Matt from Behavioral Observations.
I
You figured
forgot
by
how
like
we
the fifth or
did
sixth
these.
time we'd get this down by now, right? But
Wasn't smooth.
It was not smooth.
But
I
that's
was like,
okay.
what did we do last year? It's been a while. I don't remember the introduction. But so we'll go through our normal introduction part now. But this is a special bonus episode from us to you. So I'm Rob Perry Cruz. I'm joined by Matt, who said his introduction. But who else is here?
And me, for the last time, going first for a whole 52 weeks, Diana.
And me, Jackie. I'm here
Jackie,
too.
you
no.
had like
No
3
song
minutes for
this
that introduction,
time.
Jackie. You're going
No
a little
song.
slow there.
I know. I'm a little bit under the weather.
I feel like I'm screaming. Am I screaming?
I feel like I'm screaming. That's the problem with these headphones.
I'm going to try to scoot in a little bit.
They're
Y'all
very
are
like,
screaming, and Matt and I are just
cupped
normally
in.
talking.
no, you guys
Matt
are,
and I are giving each other the eyeballs because we're like, why are they screaming? Jeez.
So
we're sharing a
sorry.
mic. It's a little harder.
stop texting me, Jackie.
Is that better?
Yeah.
You guys sound great.
Okay, just don't hit the mute button or it's going to be a short episode. Well, we are here at the end of 2023 doing our wrap-up episode. We've done these for, what is this, 4? 5? This is 5.
No idea.
4, 3, 2, 5, 7.
It's been a number.
Oh, quite a while.
We've done a number of them
It's a
now.
non-zero number.
It's more than 3, because I remember, Matt, one year you made the joke, if we do 3, it's a trend. So it's more
Right.
than
I
that.
think it's 5.
So it's either 4 or 5, but I would say 5.
We can
It's a,
move on
it's
to
a scavenger
treatment.
hunt, listeners.
We can move on to treatment now.
Yeah, we're so sure.
I love that everyone's like,
Well, I
what
don't know.
are you talking about?
You don't need to go. It's going up though every year. The
Quality
cumulative
is
Quality
record.
is
of-
increasing.
That was a funny
the
joke.
production quality is just something to behold.
Ah, well, yeah. So for those of you, if you're like, this is the first one I'm going to
You're like,
listen
what
to,
is-
and I just want to listen to both these podcasts at once, this might not be an exact replica of what each of our podcasts sound like in a normal episode, but we hope you enjoy our get together and our end of year wrap up, where we're going to talk about a lot of different things going on from 2023 and maybe some sneak previews of what's coming up in 2024. So I guess with that out of the way, let's get started. And let's start with the kind of in memoriam, the passings section of the show, which I don't know if we did that the first year, but again, for our field is really, unfortunately, as our field is aging, that means we're also seeing more and more behavior analysts who are just sort of passing away through old age. But we also are a young field and have a lot of people who are touching lives through social media and various other outlets that didn't exist 20 years ago. So unfortunately, that also means as much as we have more voices we can all enjoy in our field, it does mean that there are lots of other individuals who sadly have passed on this year. And we're certainly, Matt, I think you said it better. If you want to jump in and cut off my rambling here.
No. I think you're making a good point, Rob, in that as our field grows and matures, I think, well, I say it a different way. I think when we first started doing this, it was maybe 1 or 2 people in a given year. And then as we were compiling the preparation for this particular episode, it occurred to me, it's like, okay, we've got at least 4 people, and it's very likely that we've missed people and things like that. And so I always am, there's a danger of doing this in terms of like you leaving someone out and things like that. And so I don't know, it's just kind of a somber note to think about. And it's also the byproduct of the glass half full perspective is that we're a growing field. And the same part that comes along with that is the law of large numbers, where you're going to have things like this that we'll discuss. So anyway, so having said that, I don't think we really chose who was going to talk about whom. But I guess while I'm chatting here, the first name that occurred to us to discuss is the passing of Hank Pennypacker.
Mm-hmm.
And there were two tributes that I heard about him that were very noteworthy. One is the one that Jim Johnston, his co-author from Strategies and Tactics for Behavioral Research, that he had written and he had posted out on the Behavior Analyst listserv and I think elsewhere. I will try to track that down and get that into the show notes if people want to check it out. It's just a real thoughtful review of Hank's just tremendous contributions to the field.
Yeah, that is one of those things when we get these passings is when we have colleagues, when they're sharing their thoughts and they share anecdotes or they share. I do find that to be kind of one of the upsides of when someone passes, having other individuals who've been touched by their lives and they're able to share about them. That is sort of the warm part of such sad news.
I was at FABA in September and Willie DeLeon just gave a really, really nice tribute to Hank as well. And really put in perspective, not just the professional contributions, and we can go through and list them certainly in a minute, but just as a lot of interesting stories of like people seeking advice from him. Apparently he was just a great sounding board. He was a mentor. And I know that topic will come up later in the show. So yeah, no shortage of superlatives for Hank.
It's amazing too that he started his faculty position at 24. Like, how clever do you have to be to like finish your doctorate and get a full-time faculty position by the time you're 24? When I was 24, I didn't know. I was still heading to the bars, having a good time when I was 24. But
yeah, that is
Pennypacker was
exceedingly
already killing it. And he had a band.
impressive.
This guy sounds so fun. He was in a band. He was a
I didn't know
pilot.
the band. Wow.
Yeah. I think it was
so he was at the University of Florida to add to what you're saying, Jackie.
Yeah.
In the psychology department and was there for his whole career.
Yeah.
His band was called Snake River Outlaws. Doesn't that sound like a band you'd want to see?
That sounds pretty badass.
Yeah.
That's pretty great.
I think,
Rob loves Emmett Otter.
oh, I had an Emmett Otter joke. That I was
Right?
gonna,
Did I ruin your
you
joke?
ruined my joke. I didn't tell you about.
Okay, well, pretend I didn't say that.
No, you finish your thing. No, it's
That's
not
all.
No.
Go ahead. What are you about to say?
Always going to be an Emmett. I was just Emmett Otter. I was going to say, didn't they lose to Emmett Otter in the?
Didn't they lost to River Bottom?
They lost to
River Bottom
Nightmare Band. Yeah.
So everyone younger than us
Is
is
this
like, Emmett Otter. By the way, and maybe even
I'm
Matt's
I'm not catching this cultural reference here, so maybe I'm like in the generational no man's land.
Old Jim Henson special.
It's a Christmas movie.
You're in the right age, Matt. But you
should
may
watch
just
it.
not have enjoyed it.
It's really cute. It's a good one. It's like back when the original like Muppet team was still performing. It was like early 80s, I think, maybe late 70s.
And you should definitely watch it. I actually went to see the puppets at the Puppeteer Convention Center because I love Emmett Otter that much in Atlanta when they were featured there.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's something I'm sad that we missed. But
me too, for you guys.
Anyway, we don't know if it was that type of, if it was a jug band, right? Which is what's featured in Emmett Otter.
I've seen video of him playing guitar, and things like that. So,
It was not, I'm getting the impression. He played guitar.
My last show with Merrill Winston, Merrill told some funny stories about Hank. So I'll note that for the show notes so people can go check that out if they want to hear Merrill's take on some of those things. Yeah,
Matt,
we can go on and on.
Oh, I just want to ask, is Merrill Winston as lively when you're like not doing the recording, like so when you're just shooting the breeze, as when he's actually on air?
Yes,
he's like 100% on there. Okay.
Oh yeah. I talk to him all the time, and it's it's not an act. It's not a
that's
shtick.
him. Okay, I like that. I like that.
That's how he is 24/7. So
amazing. But the outpouring of love for Dr. Pennypacker when he passed away was really clear on the internet. Lots and lots of folks who he had known and who he supervised as graduate students who went on to be other big names in our field. It was really clear how much they cared for him and he had cared for them in their career process. So those are some nice tributes out there.
Yeah, indeed. And then just the contributions in terms of using behavioral science, behavior analytic concepts and principles to tackle really important problems, and most notably the Mammoth and some of the things that he had put together for developing strategies for breast self-examination that would be far superior to mammograms and he was crucial in getting the BACB going. We could go on and on.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, those are some important areas. I did not know about the breast self-exam research until I was researching this.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But that is pretty cool. The very first behavior program I ever wrote was for breast self-exams.
No way.
Yeah.
You did not do
I
enough.
really jumped in the deep end there.
Well, you did not cite. You didn't do deep enough research on your citations, I guess, for writing that.
No,
up.
I wasn't even BCBA. It was like,
Oh, okay.
I was like in training and they were like, here, why don't you work on this?
Oh, okay.
So, yeah.
You didn't do like a lit review and just totally skip.
No, I
Penny
did.
Packer
I mean,
stuff.
now maybe I would know to go back and I would have found his research, but at the time I didn't. So it's an interesting way to start for him and me, both of us.
All right. Well, we've got, I think everyone's been saying, a lot of the folks who passed this year have been very distinguished careers, but I know so we're only going to be able to talk about some of the things that they did. This is not going to be an exhaustive list, kind of like we said at the top of everything.
People's accomplishments or of the people in our field who have passed away. But certainly there are going to be folks that we don't end up listing, and they, I am sure, also have valued contributions clinically and or research wise. And if there's someone that you know of that you wanted us to know about, then you can let us know.
Yeah. All right. So we got next on the list. This was a big, I think, I guess a big shock when it came out, but the passing of Brian Iwata back in October. I think in terms of as people pass, I think even some of us who've been in the field a long time, there's some names that are known more, or we read research. I mean, if you're in grad school now, if you've been a BCBA for any length of time, Brian Iwata is a name that you have probably cited. You have read his work. You have used his contributions in the form of the co-authorship on the paper on functional analysis. So he definitely, a lot like Hank Pennypacker, is one of those behavior analysts who everybody in the field knows who he is and has either used or read or done some work in their study related to his work with functional analysis. For those who knew him in person, he also, I know, was a professor forever at University of Florida too.
Indeed. Forever. And there were a couple of nice tributes at Babbitt as well. Jill Harper gave a really moving tribute in her opening remarks, her presidential remarks.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have a pretty big constituent up here in New England of folks who were students of Brian. So a large University of Florida cohort has, come up here upon post-graduation and or returned after graduation from working with him. So I think this area also feels like we have some pretty strong ties to Iwata and his legacy. He also used to come visit in this area quite a bit and provide consultation on really challenging cases, I know. So I've seen him speak a few times in that particular context, although he would not have known who I was.
He actually sat in on my dissertation practice one time. He was just in the area, and he came and he's like, I'll sit down. And man, was I just sweating bullets.
Oh my gosh.
But
did he give you pointers?
No. I think he might have dozed off. But I mean, it was like 8:15 in the morning. And then somebody gave him some coffee, and then he was like, very well done. And that's all I wanted in my life was
there you go.
For someone just
then you were like, I quit. I'm done.
I'm done. He said I did a good job, so I no longer have to do anything anymore.
Oh, yeah, he definitely was one of the folks
like
at Babbitt. I distinctly remember seeing him at one of the Babbitts back when it was out in UMass Amherst, and someone would be like, that's Brian Iwata. And it was pretty early in my career, but it was one of the times when I said, the guy who wrote the paper that I read in grad school, oh my, he's over there?
It's like hard eyes.
I can't talk to him. He's too famous. What's that?
So the paper we're referring to, as everyone should probably know, is the 1982/1994 publication toward a functional analysis of self-injury. It's got this weird double publication date because it originally was published not in JABA. Horror of horrors.
People magazine,
right?
weirdly.
Yeah, I know.
I hope it got rejected from JABA. I hope it got rejected initially from JABA, and then they're like, oh crap. This is actually.
I don't actually know the story.
I don't either.
Right?
Yeah, that would be a good story to track down.
Yeah, but then it was so influential in our field. It really established the 4-series functional analysis, the classic functional analysis as we know it, to be in widespread use. And so then in 1994, it was republished in JABA, already having been established really as a super duper important paper. And that's, I think most people would argue, Iwata's biggest legacy, both because of just the way in which it brought function-based treatment into the focus and forefront in our field. Not that he's the only person that was touting function-based treatment, but it did change. Yes. But it had a huge influence in that way. And it's an enduring legacy in that your publication doesn't have to be in JABA for it to be meaningful too. So there's that. Right. There's that piece as well.
I never got a chance. I attended two of his 2-day functional analysis workshops. He used to do these workshops and go around the country, and I attended it twice. I attended it once in like 2003 outside of Washington D.C., and then I about 10 years later I did it again in Boston. And the one in Boston was kind of funny in that I remember him going through these materials the first go around, and then I think he had more data to make his point. But we were in a room of about 50 to 60 BCBAs, and he's going through all the data, just showing how your indirect and descriptive assessments are basically. I don't want to paraphrase. I don't put words in his mouth or whatever. But he was basically saying like you're not getting to the root of it. Basically, like, and all of the behavior analysts were all looking at each other. I remember like looking at the person next to me and like, oh my God, it's like we've been doing it wrong or something like that. He's like, it's really like we really, and of course, there's all sorts of information out there that describes people using some of those analyses that are less accurate and things like that. So I think the lessons are still valid today. But it was really kind of funny because it was just like nonstop myth busting. It was really quite. So that's my only encounter with as it relates to any kind of personal interactions with him.
I feel like I went to one of those 2-day workshops around Boston, and I'm wondering were we maybe at the same one way back when? It was
probably more like 2011 or 2012.
I hope you guys sat next to each other.
That would have been so wow. That'd be so weird.
Yeah, it was at like I think it was at the Marriott downtown. So
all I remember is I was really, really late getting there because I couldn't find it, and I left late, and I was so embarrassed. And I was like, I'd done the job long enough that I was like, I'll talk to Brian Iwata. And then I was just so embarrassed that I was late to his talk that I just sat in the back and really didn't contribute anything. I was just so embarrassed for my lateness. Yeah. And I got no CEs for attending because I was way more than 5 minutes beyond the start.
So that was back in the day when like getting online CEUs was very difficult to come by. Yeah. And I believe that was sometime in the spring, and I renew in June, and I was hustling. So I was like, oh, 2 days? Sign me up. And it was just one of those, just funny how the field's changed and how in terms of.
Oh yeah. But you're not there. They're not going to initial your little sheet. So you're not getting CEs.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Those were the days.
And I was never late again for anything. Well, that's not true. I wish.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Well,
anything else you want to say about Dr. Iwata?
I mean, I think
there's so much we could say. And again, that probably deserves an episode unto its own or some number of episodes. But it's an incredible legacy that just kind of Diana, you make a good point that he wasn't the first person to start talking about functional analysis, but it's kind of like but to articulate that particular view of it and to go after those ideas with such empirical tenacity. The body of research is just off the charts. So it's incredible.
Tenacity. That's such the word, man. Because it's like he found that interest and just researched it, and his students researched it and researched it.
Well, and his focus was always on individuals who were not getting care otherwise because their behavior was so challenging and so extreme. And that is such a neglected population, and it continues to be a neglected population, right? And he really never wavered from that tight focus on developing really dignified care for that particular population. So that's a good legacy to have.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. So next we have
on.
Jessica Likewise. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. So I want to give a shout out to Celia Heyman from the ABA study group. She was the one who brought this, brought Jessica to my attention when we were in preparation for the show. And she sent me some, and I didn't have the pleasure of meeting Jessica, but she sent some notes for us to review here. So Jessica empowered and uplifted a lot of people that she interacted with. She founded Hope Education Services, and which provided services to individuals with autism. Was a graduate of Manhattanville College and Kaplan University, and just helped many students and aspiring behavior analysts with exam preparation and much, much more. She is only 37 years old, which is just,
I can't believe
just
that.
tragic.
Yep.
And according to what Celia sent me here, she had brain cancer, and even during her treatment, she was still making videos to help people learn about behavior analysis. Can you believe that?
Oh.
Yeah. So what an inspiration. So Celia, thank you for sending us this information on Jessica.
Thanks, Celia.
The next name on our list was Stephen Foreman, who again was very young, I believe in his early 40s.
Yeah, Stephen was 42, also had brain cancer. Yeah, glioblastoma. It's a really aggressive form. And this one hit me really hard because I knew Stephen. I actually had a chance to spend a fair bit of time with him at conferences. And he just an unbelievably great guy, friendly, generous. I'm kind of grasping for words there because there are too many. He's an all-around great guy. Very, very important behavior analyst in the state of Kentucky. Was the president of the Kentucky Association for Behavior Analysis. Was in the leadership of clinical behavior analysis, which is I think the largest or one of the largest behavior analysis providers in the state. Was in very, very key and influential for things like licensure and other sorts of things. And in addition to just a great dad and husband and a great friend. And he will definitely be missed by the field for sure. Just an all around excellent dude. So
yeah,
I was scrolling through the Kentucky ABA kind of Facebook page, and I know there's kind of a memorial reward for, I believe, like a mentorship and their supervision that they're going to be doing going forward in memory of him. And that seemed, he just seemed like he really had a lot of impact on the behavior analysis community in Kentucky, which is not crazy far from us, but I think at least for us, we're usually doing sort of the East Coast scene is where we know mostly. So it's nice. It's always good to hear about other folks working in other states to bring behavior analysis to their state and to other practitioners.
Yeah, the outpouring of support and for his family and just, I think, general shock and sadness over his passing on the internet was huge across the different venues that I follow. And I didn't have the opportunity to meet him in the past, but clearly he impacted so many people that he met. Just like you're saying, Matt, like everyone said he was the nicest guy, and they truly seemed so very upset that he was gone. So I am sad that I never got to meet him. It seems like we lost a really, really good one. And that's sad and just tragic at how young he was. He's already left quite a legacy. You can see based on the work that he did, and clearly just the way in which people will be remembering him is really moving, but it's very sad.
Another recent passing was Ronnie Dietrich.
Yeah, I did a little background research on Ronnie Dietrich to be able to speak to this. Again, you saw so many of his mentors and students speak out on the enjoyment that they had from knowing him and having him in their lives. There is almost virtually immediately, there was a piece published about his life from various folks who had known him and worked with him in the past. So it's published in BAP. It just came out recently, and so I reviewed it in order to ensure that I had the most up-to-date info on that. So that was written by Janet Twyman, Sarah Pinkelman, Sean Kenyon, Bill Heward, Ken Littall, and Tom Critchfield. And they each wrote a little piece in memoriam to him and just speaking on what impact he had had on their careers and on their view of behavior analysis. So it's a great piece and you should go read it, and it will allow you to want to go read Ronnie's work if you hadn't read it previously. And also I think for me, like these always make you think about like the reflections on the field and the impact that individuals might have and what maybe your own legacy would be someday too. So his background was in translational research, but he also moved into some level of clinical services. He had a center that he helped start. And then a lot of his time and energy went into a nonprofit organization that really promoted evidence-based research that was called the Wing Institute. He had research that was published in a variety of areas, including thinking about the impact of evidence-based practice and how one should operate in that area, treatment integrity, and then overall dissemination and program adoption. So he was a big picture type of thinker. In this article, they also had a picture of him. You have to go look at it, where he was like a groovy looking guy. He had like long white hair and like looked like he wore glasses. But his t-shirt just said "rub dirt" on it. Apparently that was his solution for things, right? So
but it looked like a medical shirt. So it looked like a lifeguarding shirt.
It had like a first aid thing on it, right? So he was a sports guy too. So he's like, fine, just like rub some dirt on it, which I really appreciate. I'm from the South. And so one of my family's phrases was, God made dirt and dirt don't hurt. So I feel like this takes it to the next level, right? Like maybe the dirt will actually be medicinal. So I just feel like that gives like a great picture of probably his sense of humor.
What is the origin of that phrase? Was it
fine? It's fine to be dirty. God made dirt. Dirt don't hurt.
I used to rub dirt on it. Had some sort of like, in the old days when they make a poultice out of
probably it might actually.
But I don't know if that's true.
But he's like, you got a little injury, just rub some dirt on.
I think it's probably just another way.
Shake it off.
I think it's just another way of saying suck it up.
Yeah.
So that's not very sanitary. I don't understand how this will help me.
So in reading these articles or reading, these little in memoriam pieces, I felt a great loss for not having him in our behavior analytic community anymore. I felt very grateful that we had him in our community and had pieces of his writing in the past. And I also was, sad that I hadn't had a chance to hear him speak previously because he seemed like quite a guy and a very interesting and deep thinker in our field too. So he did not take the easy path in anything. I think he really strove to make big differences in our field and wasn't shy about looking at the failures of our field either. And we need those types of voices out there. So there was a quote.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there was a quote here too that he had said in 2018, which was, "We built a better mousetrap, but the world did not beat a path to our door," talking about behavior analysis. It is somewhat ironic that what is arguably a science of influence, behavior analysis, has not been more effective at influencing the adoption rate of a science of influence, which is not an uplifting quote, but I think a very insightful one. So
if you image search him, all of the images are like, he kind of looks like the crocodile hunter. Like I didn't find a single image of him like looking like, oh, I'm like very smart and important, but it's like more like cash. And,
yes.
and so that's kind of awesome. I would have loved to be besties with him.
Yeah.
We have a Ronnie Dietrich article. I think I threw it in our Google Drive for the future. I kind of want to find a couple articles related. I know Bill Heward had mentioned him as having written, it might actually be the citation that you put in the notes, Diana, on dissemination and storytelling and telling stories. And Bill Heward has a book out on behavior contracts. It's all stories. And then there's like the science part of the back, but it's all stories leading up to it. And I just loved that idea. And so I printed that article out and looked at it and just loved that idea of how we can disseminate better. Because it's certainly one of the things that we don't always do, or we do it in ways where we try to sound very smart. Like if we sound smarter, people will therefore love what we have to say, as opposed to if we make something that people are entertained by, then they'll actually care what we have to say. And then you can put meaning into what you're saying. So I'm hoping we get to do an episode on more dissemination, but specifically stories and how we can tell meaningful stories that don't lose the thread of our science. But I know that was something that he was writing on kind of later on in his career. So
yeah, it's an important point, Rob.
And we have one more, a very recent passing, just the November 24th. So what was that? Like a week.
Well, from when we were recording.
From when we're recording. When you're hearing this, it's been longer than that. From when we're recording it. Peek behind the curtain. That's what it is.
She died on my birthday. It's sad. Nobody should die on anybody's birthday, but that means nobody would ever die, right?
That was,
You know, that does happen.
That's not, But Judith LeBlanc, I don't think I'd said. Judith LeBlanc had just passed in end of November. And I know she was, I know, Matt, you mentioned kind of one of the emails that you just saw. It was on the Women in ABA
it was on the Weeba Instagram.
Instagram,
yeah.
Had mentioned that. But she was at another professor. She was at University of Kansas for, if not her whole career, huge chunk of her career in the Department of Human Development and Family Life, which is now the Department of Applied Behavioral Science. She received the Outstanding Contribution Award for International Development of Behavior Analysis. She's in the University of Kansas Women's Hall of Fame and the Weeba Hall of Fame. She did a lot of research on stimulus equivalence and discrimination, I believe. So a lot of kind of educational aspects of behavior analysis. And I did find, I'm only going to phrase it this way because it wasn't in her obituary, that the thing she was most proud of in her career was the founding of the Centro and Sullivan del Peru in Lima, providing services to individuals with developmental disabilities, including autism, Down syndrome, and their families. And so that was cited in the obituary as the thing she was most proud of in her career. And I know sometimes when you look up bigger names or names in the field of psychology or behavior analysis, you find various sources. But she has a Wikipedia. I don't know if everyone does. I didn't check for everyone's Wikipedia page, but she had a Wikipedia page and Casp had a Wikipedia page. So you've touched a lot of lives when you have a Wikipedia page about you.
Hank Pennypacker did not have a Wikipedia page.
I mean, no offense if you do not have a Wikipedia page.
Well, someone should make one. Anybody can make one.
Anyone can make them.
So,
but you touch someone's life to the point that they're like, I'm writing down some awesome facts.
Next week, we're all going to make our own Wikipedia pages.
I know, yes.
Mine's going to be like...
Hint, listeners. Matt and me and Diana and Jack, you would love some Wikipedia pages.
All right.
If
and I was going to say...
Speak for yourself, guys. I don't know if I want a Wikipedia page.
I know, right? So if you asked me if I wanted to be a distinguished professor, have a meritorious teaching award, or be in the Hall of Fame, I would pick Hall of Fame.
Which Hall of Fame?
The Weeba Hall of Fame?
Not like
just saying.
Salesman of the World Hall of Fame.
No. Calling something a Hall of Fame, though, like that blew right up my list.
I'd take like any Hall of Fame as long as, it wasn't like the Jerks Hall of Fame or something,
You know what? No, they'd remember you, Matt, though. If you're in the Jerk, Matt. Do you know what's the Jerks Hall of Fame? Did you hear about that?
Yeah. Like Don Rickles or something like that. Yeah.
First ballot too. She just got right.
Yeah. All right. So we're not gonna. We're gonna kind of, I guess, lighten the mood a little bit here.
A little bit, yeah.
And I think it was, but I do think I think it's worthwhile to pay tribute to these folks who have contributed so much to our field. But we do have some other things to talk about, some other things that happened in 2023. One of which is we got to write a book chapter together, or Diana got to write a book chapter to which the rest of us added a paragraph or two, or at least that's the way I felt about it. But no, I'm kidding. But what I'm saying is that
typos. I was really helpful, I think.
This is Diana's baby, and we were. At least it seemed like that to me. So, what is the book chapter called? And
I believe the book is going to be titled "Dissemination in Behavior Analysis" or something similar, and it's published by Springer. It should be coming out in early 2024.
And not out. Well, we have whatever the email we got.
We're
going
done
forward.
with it, but it's in production now. And our chapter was on non-traditional methods of dissemination in behavior analysis. So it was very nice of the editors to think of us and reach out to all four of us to contribute to that chapter. So we talk a little bit about the various non-traditional ways in which you can disseminate behavior analysis and the pros and cons of doing that. So you can check that out. in bookstores.
And it was fun. It was fun to get to read everyone else's sections and to make suggestions and to pass around ideas and to do more research into the area. Something that it's like when you do something and we're always disseminating behavior analysis, like we're doing on a weekly basis. But then when someone's like, write about it, you're like, okay, let me think about all that. You just want to write what you know. And you're like, I don't have citations for everything. So let me double check some of these truths that I've been holding evident for all this time. It's fun though. That's fun. And I learned about a cool restaurant in the city near us, in Worcester near us, called The New Kitchen, because I edited my section of the chapter while eating a delicious beet bowl or beet salad there.
Yeah, it's NU Kitchen.
Yeah. It's double bonus.
But it's not associated with Northeastern.
No, Diana and I eat there a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Rob.
It's wicked good.
I had never been there before, and writing this book chapter allowed me to go there.
So those two things are like.
So I will always remember it. Yeah.
Without the new kitchen, this chapter wouldn't have happened. So
that's right.
We have to be grateful. Yeah, I mean, one of the things, Rob, though, you mentioned the trying to do research. There is a bit of it's a different thing to research than say self-injury. There are decades of literature on or anything else that's fairly well researched. So in many ways, this is a bit harder to kind of get some scientific studies on. So maybe that was a little bit liberating, I guess, in some respects, and we could just kind of write about our experiences and what we've learned throughout this process. At least that's part of what I took to it. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing it in print, and it was appreciated the opportunity to work with you guys on that.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun.
High five, team.
Woo. Did everyone, if you get a copy of the book and you see us and you say, could you sign the chapter that y'all co-wrote? I don't speak for everyone, but totally 100% we'll do it.
I got my Sharpie right here.
We got the Sharpie.
I've been carrying it around.
Yeah, I'm gonna get one of those fancy silver ones just in my pocket, waiting for people. I'll be looking at book. Oh, right. That looks like a good book.
Not to disappoint you, Rob, but I have written a book chapter before, and that has yet to happen.
Well, yeah, and you haven't signed my copy. I'm really upset.
I mean, I've been carrying my sparkle pen that does when you write, it writes 2 sparkles so that I can write my name with a little heart over the I in true author fashion.
Ooh.
And I've written multiple book chapters as well and articles. And I've never.
Yeah, you're all so great. And Matt, I know you co-wrote a book too. Everyone's so great.
Matt,
no one sent me signed copies of anything, by the way.
Oh, okay.
Listeners, just these people. They're not sending me signed copies of their work.
I've signed copies of my book before.
Oh, look
where's my signed copy, Matt?
Oh.
What is it?
Well, Rob, Christmas is coming.
I don't know what you guys are doing, but
Christmas is coming, Rob.
All right, so now I'm just begging people, please come ask me to sign a thing so I can feel
amazing.
Important.
Anyway, it was. Book chapters are really a labor of love, I would say, but
it's funny
we got it done.
It's I did this tiny chunk of a larger piece.
Yeah.
Book chapter notwithstanding, what's new with ABA Inside Track that you guys feel like mentioning in 2023?
Man, I don't know if you feel this way, Matt, but it just kind of keeps going. I think in terms of what's new, sometimes it feels like I reflect on how long we've been doing the show. And I'm like, we should do something different. And then part of me is like, no, just keep doing the same thing that you've been doing because it's gotten really fluent and you can really cause I remember when we switched way back years and years ago to we're going to do 3 full episodes a month. And that seemed impossible, but you do anything long enough and it's sort of just is yep, that's what we do. Here's the next episode and here's the guests we're going to get. And so, yeah. No big changes on my end. When I'm done,
so
I'll never be done.
That
will never change, listeners. I'll keep talking forever and ever.
So one thing that has happened this year is we release a book club. We do a book club, right? But it's for patrons. But then after a year, we release all the old book clubs for everybody to listen to. And so I feel like that has been almost like a recent addition in that sense that most people are just now getting access to those. And that's been pretty cool because a lot of people have written in and said they really like that format and that they want that to keep going. So that is, although it's not new to us, it is kind of a newisher piece of the show. So that will continue. And then
what
the
is
other
the
thing
format of you? I'm sorry. Before we move on to the next thing, I want to make sure folks know that, like, so when does the book club meet? What are the particulars about it? If people want to get involved.
Yeah. So, I mean, we have like a Patreon we just put together because originally the book club is one of those things of like reading an extra book in addition to doing the episodes. Will we do this for more than 2 book clubs?
It was hard
because it's a lot to read a book and then talk about a book. So we're like, well, we'll put it on, we'll do the Patreon thing. And if people subscribe, then they can get discounts, but then they get the book club. That's how they'd get it. And if no one ever joins, then we don't have to do these anymore. And that fortunately was not the case. Enough people liked them. And then we sort of banked them. And it was just like the show, but instead of an article, it's just about a book. We sort of go through the book.
Got it.
They last for 2 hours.
Yeah. Depending on the book, it's been different. Whether we'd sort of talk about like, this is what's in this book versus more longer discussions about the content, which takes precedence in the discussion. But we try to make it fun to read along, or I don't have time to read this whole book. I'd like to hear someone else that I like listening to tell me about, and then maybe I'll go back and read it.
Right. Yeah. Initially, I think we were like, oh, maybe people will join us for the book club, but that's not really what happened. So it's just us. But that is how we met our book club guy, Alan. So he always joins us for book club, and he is incredibly insightful in that regard. So we're very grateful to have him. So that, I feel like that's kind of an update. And then the other piece. So this year we had tons and tons of guests on the show, which we love having guests on the show. But the format when we have a guest is much different than when it's just the 3 of us talking. And it's a lot more like your show, except there's 3 of us, but Rob is the best question asker amongst us. So sometimes it ends up feeling like a very good episode, but that episode is largely between Rob and the guest.
And in my defense, I did say, what if we all took turns asking the guest questions? And I was told, no, you ask the questions.
There are things I'm good at, and that's probably not one of them. So
I like asking questions too, but Rob is better at it.
Yeah.
Well, Jackie only likes asking weird conspiratorial right-wing questions, though, so it gets awkward. No, it's not. That's not true. It's not
true at all.
Sometimes I try to ask the guest a question, but it ends up that there is no question, and I've only just like said a statement at them, and they're like,
"Oh, yeah." In your defense, you're very smart. So when you don't ask a question and just make a statement, usually is a very good statement. Although it is not. That's not a question, anyway, Professor.
So this year
I am guilty as charged with doing that. Sometimes I'll say to a guest, like, I don't know if there's a question or not, but you can take that however you want.
Exactly. So this year we're, trying to be sort of mindful in that we want to have a balance between guest episodes and just the 3 of us episodes so that we can kind of like maintain the format that allows us to approach this as like 3 friends talking about articles, which was kind of always the point. So our goal is like a half and half approach.
Back to basics approach in 2024.
Listeners, if you've made it this far, you can expect that for the remainder of the year.
It'll be just like when we started the show and we didn't have anyone who would want to be a guest.
Matt's so fearless. Like Matt's just like,
yeah, Matt comes out of the gate
and you're
guests.
like so
we're
good
like,
at that.
No one's going to come on our show. Let's not do it.
I'm like super nervous to ever ask anybody.
So when I first started the podcast, I had to explain to people what a podcast was.
Really, man, those are the days, huh?
It's like a radio show, but on the internet.
Are you just listening to this yourself, young man? Like, what are you doing with these clips?
So no lie. You? So like, I'll tell you in a second, but just a funny story relative to that. So when I first started the show, I had recorded a bunch of interviews before actually launching the show. I think I had like 6 or 7 in the can, and I had 2 interviews with Greg Hanley, and at the end of concluding the second one, which ended up being the 7th episode, I said, I actually am going to do a podcast. I said, this is not like a ruse to get like a personal one-on-one consultation about functional analysis and skills-based treatment.
Oh man, that's a great way to get around paying consulting fees. Like,
yeah, can you imagine that? Yeah. I'm starting a podcast and it's going to launch in 2025. So if I can meet with you 3 or 4 times, that would be kind of cool. And never do it. So anyway, back to your question. Yeah. One of the things I was, Rob, when you said people ask like, what are you going to do? What's next for the show and stuff like that. I kind of have a similar mindset. It's like, I just want to keep recording podcasts and talking to interesting people about interesting topics. And one of the people who always asked me about like, how's the show going to evolve? What do you want to do next? And stuff like that is Miguel Avila from Essential for Living. And he's been I've known him for a couple of years now, and he's become a good friend. And so I kind of actually asked him to kind of put his money where his mouth is. So we've started to do in 2023, and we started to do some Spanish language special series, BOP and
So awesome.
And so, yeah, I think we have like 6 or 7 episodes out already. I know we have got others coming out, and that's been a real fun project. And so like the thing I was most excited about in 2023 are episodes I don't appear on, which is kind of cool. I can give you like the cheerleader for this other endeavor. And
isn't that the podcast host dream though, Matt? That they get themselves a network and then they get a bunch of other hosts to do the podcast, and then they just sit back and produce. Then they have to say their name, like produced by Matt Cicoria. You got to be somewhere in the bag. Executive producer or CEO of Podcastia or whatever. I think that's the dream, right?
I don't know if it's someone's dream. It's
dream.
not particular, but yeah. So that's been really fun. And for all I know, they could be making fun of me because I don't speak Spanish. But
why would they go to all that trouble just to make fun of you?
Right.
It's like that Simpsons where everyone went to see the second greatest band. They went to see Garfunkel and Oates, and then everyone's booing. And Lisa goes, "Why would they pay to come to our show just to boo us?"
Yeah. So so that's been fun. We plan to do more of that in 2024. Yeah. The only other thing in 2024 I think that's going to be kind of new and exciting is this other project I've been working on with Polly Cavoni and Anika Costa, the Behavioral Toolbox. So we're developing a standalone website where we're recording on-demand educational classes for behavior analysts in public schools. But ideally, and this is kind of gets to more of the dissemination angle, if we really are successful, the majority of the people taking part in these trainings won't be behavior analysts. They'll be special educators. They'll be school psychologists. They'll be kind of like non-credentialed, quote unquote, behavior specialists that are pretty common in school settings. Just because there's a need to get this information out there. I know people have tried in various ways, and this is our attempt to get that information out there as well. So we're recording. We're actually going to studios and filming these things. I went down to the ABA Tech studio. Shout out to ABA Technologies.
Very cool.
And got to stand on the tape line and read from a teleprompter and the whole 9 yards under the lights. It was kind of a fun experience. So
very cool.
That course that I had filmed is basically like all the things you should do before thinking about a functional assessment. There's a more interesting sounding title that will settle on.
That's a working title.
Yeah. But it's like there's so many low tech interventions out there that and it's like that meme where like the person like steps from the first step to the sixth step. Like,
yes.
It's like behavior problem FBA. Like it's like the step that's like the sixth step up. And so my goal is putting our goal putting these resources together is to kind of fill in some of those other things people can do from point A to point B.
That's cool.
So, yeah. So anyway, that's what's coming up in 2024. So if you're into schools, keep an eye out for that.
Well, Matt, that's a good segue because I know we probably want to kind of be brief with some of this section because we've been going for a little while, but kind of just some general areas of interesting research for us during the past year. And I'd already mentioned for me, I think it's been a lot of that kind of updates to school-based curricular design, but sort of under that umbrella of there's a lot more to do in schools when we're talking about behavior than just bad behavior. Come up with the individualized plan. You need an FA or an FBA because this kid needs a special plan. And then someone will run it. I don't know who. And I know you spoke about that at Babbitt, and I didn't get a chance to. I was gonna ask you about it at the trivia night, but we didn't have enough time, and then I wasn't able to go. So
you guys were too busy winning. You guys are too busy winning trivia.
Well, it's easy to win when you write the questions. But I was knowing we were going to get a chance to chat. I was hoping you could sort of talk a little more about it. But it sounds like you're going to have to send me the link to this professional recording to get all that information and get to see more of it and share it.
We're hoping it's ready. We're hoping it's ready in a few weeks. But yeah, you're exactly right. There's so many things. What's a great article is, I'm blanking on the title. It was by Anderson and St. Clair. It was so when it was in behavior analysis and practice, I would have looked this up if I knew I was going to reference it. But anyway, it was from like 2013, and it was in response to the Hanley article.
Yeah.
Which was a kind of a call for people to be more analytic in their functional analysis approach. And they wrote a very thoughtful response to that, saying, "Hey, there's a lot more to do than in school settings in particular than functional analyses."
Mm-hmm.
And so that was an inspiration to do a lot of this stuff, as well as just seeing some of the great work that's been done in areas like choral responding, the good behavior game, and so much more. So there's a lot. There's so many, again, low tech interventions that behavior analysts, behavior specialists, or whatever, they can work directly with the teacher to implement in their classroom. Especially when if you have a number of kids who have what we just might consider disruptive classroom behavior, talking out, getting out of your seat, and things like that. Those things like group contingencies and things like that are the more appropriate treatment. Obviously, if someone has a dangerous repertoire, yes, you do skip to the top step, and you do.
Right.
And dangerous in schools, though. I mean, you probably see this, Matt. Like the definition of dangerous for folks like worked in private schools, it's like, oh, it's an SIB. They're aggressive. They're like throwing hard objects at people when they come close. And it's like, well, no, they talk out a lot. I'm like, okay, so let's slow our rolls a little on that.
Here, I found the article. It's functional analysis with typically developing children. Best practice or too early to tell in response to Hanley 2012. It's Anderson and St. Peter.
I think we did that one.
2013.
I think we either talked about that on the show or we mentioned it in talking about the Hanley article. Because my backstory is I felt like that article gave a lot of good thinking points to Craig. And I was like, I wonder if he already had like the ISCA in mind, or if reading this response to his other article, he was like, you know what? She's right. Let's make something different than that. So that's my headcanon, is that Cynthia Anderson and St. Peter kind of got him thinking more, I got to make another article about something else. I'm sure he was already in the process, but that's my fun story.
I don't know if we've discussed this. I can't remember.
I remember that because I remember thinking that it felt like such a direct response to the work Craig had been doing. And then everything after that has been, not everything, but so much of it has been focused on the ISCA and the brief functional analysis.
He talks about that in as a matter of fact, in session 1 of behavioral observations.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I think he'd been, I think Diana's right. He had been working on it for a period of time, was doing the scholarship around that. But I think the goal of that 2012 paper, or was it 2010? Was just to encourage people to be more analytic in general and he went through a number of different functional analysis strategies that could be used and set like brief functional analyses, FAs of precursors, trial-based FAs, all the hits, if you will. So, I think those two papers should be read like as a package. So
smart.
That's nice.
That's my 2 cents.
All right, so okay. I've got some more listening that I can look forward to on this subject, because that's been a big one. And then also I know I always want to learn more about direct instruction, precision teaching, and so we did an episode on it. We've had some guests on about Jared Van came on, talked about precision teaching with us, and so I kind of want to dig deeper into that because I think that goes hand in hand with a lot of those. What are the other things that could be done in your classroom? That one's a little more systemic. Those two, at least, are a little more systemic in that you might be able to convince a classroom teacher of some other steps that could be good, like good behavior game type steps. But to be like, what if we rethought how you do education starts being more administrative, because a teacher can't necessarily change the full curriculum in classroom, even if you're looking and saying the kids aren't responding, this curriculum is not matching their needs. So
well, one of those things that's important is curricular revision. If you have individuals who are in the 5th grade and they're reading at a 2nd grade level, and lo and behold, a lot of their acting out comes during their language arts block. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to kind of determine why a particular activity has these aversive properties that make escape very, very valuable. So it's an important point. I had a principal once I worked with years and years ago, and he said, good instruction is the best behavior management tool. And I was like, oh man, that is a killer killer saying. So,
I mean, I say that my son's been helping me with after school club. We do Dungeons and Dragons, and he'll be like, no one's listening. I'm like, you need to keep the adventure moving. If they have things that they can do that they are interested in doing, they will pay attention to you. But if you just yell at them, we have to be paying attention, we have to play the game, they're going to get distracted. And that same idea of like, even when things that are like fun, if you don't give people something they can latch onto and be interested in, they engage in other behavior. It's free time in that regard too.
He is only 12.
You know what? I expect better from my child at 12.
High expectations.
See, if he can't run a classroom, I'm really disappointed.
If he's going to sit at that table of high expectations.
And Jackie, I know you put in an area of interest that you thought worth shouting out from 2023.
Yeah, so one thing that I have been really loving is all of the special issues. Yeah, it's not issues that behavior analysis and practice have been putting out. I feel like when they have these special issues, there is a lot of think pieces, right? But those think pieces have been turning into action pieces, right? So I love that. So the first one that I'm thinking about is that supervision special issue that they put out in 2016, which was a long time ago. I fully recognize that. But when that special issue came out, there was almost next to no articles on supervision and how to be a good supervisor or how to be a good supervisee. And now every time you look at any behavior analytic journal, there is at least one supervision related article in there, which I love. And that could be because of that special issue. It could be now that you're required to have supervision CEs. It could be that there's a more focus on supervision. Who knows? But I think that 2016 special issue kind of catapulted us into where we are now, which I think is great. And so I'm particularly excited to see where this special issue takes us. So the special issue on public policy that came out in the September issue, because I think that is a very weak area of behavior analysis and how we deal with public policy and how we deal with people outside of behavior analysis, particularly. So I'm really excited to see and to read all of them. I haven't read them all yet. I've been a little busy, but I'm hoping that that'll be my holiday vacation read. And so I'm hoping to see where those think pieces take us and who will now be excited about public policy and less scared about public policy because now there's a little more information out there.
Yeah. And a lot of them are online first, so you can access them readily off the site, which does get harder to find them as they have. I found that they've had so many special issues that sometimes I have a hard time. It's like, wait, no, I know they had a great article like 2 months ago. Where did it go? And I got to wait for it to come back into the print version, find it again. But oh well, what a problem to have so many interesting articles to try to navigate through on their front page. But that free access is so important for dissemination when they start coming out or when they start publishing those. And I found a lot of articles. I think there was one in public policy. I want to say it was related to police that I would never have gone to the trouble of searching out or reading, but just having it in front of me. It just sounded interesting and it was a very interesting read. And yeah, like at least for your N of one there, Jackie, I think about public policy just a little bit more than I did.
Yeah, these are important special issues that are getting an opportunity to have a voice and an audience that might not otherwise. And so I applaud BAP for creating these platforms. Prior to BAP, I guess these things would have been published in like the Behavior Analyst maybe, or sometimes Java would have like those
Java has some
think piece opportunities, right? But this has been a real push, I think, by BAP to try to get more out there. And so that's pretty nice. Who knows what will be coming in the upcoming year as far as like special issues. So we'll see.
One thing I don't have a smooth segue for this, but I know supervision we did mention supervision a minute ago, and I had reached out to Jim Carr to see if there was anything that he wanted us to mention, things that are new and exciting or changes and things like that for the year. And he said, basically, no, but if you could please say this instead. It's like, kudos to Jim for like, I'm going to give you an answer to the question you should have asked, but didn't. But it points out to the challenge of supervision that we have in the field. And he sent me this little statistic here that I knew it was in this direction, but I didn't know the extent to which it was, which is this, that 60% of all the BCBAs that have been certified between 2018, 60% of the BCBAs that are out there have been certified between 2018 and 2023. In other words, 6/10 of the workforce have been certified for 5 years or less.
Yeah.
So imagine
That's
that.
wild.
Imagine that was like your like all doctors or all airline pilots or all or any type of profession that. So we are very unique in this kind of very odd demographic circumstance. It'll be really interesting to see how this shakes out. And his direct quote here is that mentoring and fostering a high performing behavior analytic workforce should be, in his words, an all hands on deck focus at this point in time. So I don't have much more to say on that other than that I think if you're people who are in clinical leadership or administrative leadership roles and things like that, that I hope that that's what is on their mind as well. I have the luxury of not having anyone work for me, or there's no one above or below me, so I can admire this from a safe distance, if you will. So in terms of, but I'm still concerned about it, certainly. And again, it'll be interesting to see what this looks like in 2033 instead of 2023.
I'm glad that Jim brought that up, and I'm glad that you asked him, because that gives us a chance to talk about this. But that's huge. 60% of people have been BCBAs for less than 5 years. That means not only are they still relatively new to their job, but we're also asking them to now provide supervision and training to folks who are attempting to become BCBAs. And that's a big ask. And our expectations for how they're going to know how to impart wisdom in training when they themselves are still probably trying to get a handle on it is a little bit of an unknown. In my day job, that is part of my job, is to ensure that people are getting supervision for their fieldwork hours as trainees. And I think that this is a critical need in our field, because folks need to have strong supervisors who are giving them the opportunities that are going to help them become good BCBAs in the future. And I think a lot of BCBAs are just feel really stressed and stretched thin, and are maybe not able to do this to the degree that they would prefer if they didn't have so many other demands placed on them. And yet, again, it is absolutely critical that we are creating these quality opportunities for folks upcoming, that they're actually getting their supervision needs met while they're in school. And it doesn't stop while you're in school either, because a brand new BCBA continues to need a lot of mentorship in that new position. And so I agree with you and Jim that this really is an all hands on deck situation. And each of us should be, if we've been in this field for a while, thinking about how we can help foster opportunities for up and coming BCBAs and newly certified BCBAs, because folks continue to need that guidance and support.
Yeah.
And post certification for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think one of the other challenges that we're going to face too as a field is we've had so many great articles, like so many Tire Sellers articles on supervision and barriers to supervision. And I think they've really allowed us as a field to up our game for supervising our trainees and our students. But that next step, or that mentorship, or that, what is the field work? What does the practicum look like? I think that's a bigger question, because most of the places where you will get a job as a BCBA, a lot of those funding structures are not set up to help you get good at your job. They're set up to pay you to do your job well. But if you're first year, second year, and the expectation is, well, you're probably amazing. Nobody ever was amazing at their job the first day there. I mean, I know we've done a lot of...
Speak for yourself.
Oh, sorry. Other than Diana, who is the exception that proves the rule,
obviously,
nobody was great at their jobs on day one. And going back to schools, if you're a BCBA and it's your first job, out of being an RBT, out of graduate school, and you're consulting in a school, there's so much context that you don't have. There is so much sort of knowledge of working with others that you do not have. And it is possible that the structure is set up such that you have a BCBA who is a mentor on site, or that you still have access to all of your mentors from graduate school and the time to access them. But it's also possible that you're told, here's what you need to get done. It's your first day on the job. You don't want to get fired. So you're not really thinking about where are my reinforcers, where are the pitfalls and the ethical quandaries I'm going to find myself in. And you just put your head down and you try to do your best. And like we were talking about, does that mean that you just do an FBA every single time someone says this kid's being bad rather than thinking about other environmental context? You may not have been trained to do that. That may not have been something that came up. You may not have anyone else. The only other BCBA you might be working with is someone that you like pass like ships in the night as you're jumping from meeting to meeting, who's been in the same boat you've been in for years and years. And this is all they know. So they don't have any advice to give you as well. I know there's a great article that we talked about a while back. It was a Hartley colleagues article, 2016 from BAP, called The Apprentice. And I just love that idea of a model that supported, it was for trainees, but I'd love to think about that model for our field. And ideally, it would come from the fields that we are going into. But realistically, it's probably going to have to be sort of industrious BCBAs who have a group of other BCBAs working where they are that see the value proposition, both for the place they're working and for the field as a whole, of putting together some of those systems where it sort of just becomes the weft of the job to keep improving, whether it's through more dissemination efforts, your on-site journal clubs, your communities of practice being a little bit more defined, which again, it's always more work and it always takes time. But really thinking about that all hands on deck, I think does put a little bit of a bee in folks' bonnet about you probably do have to do some of this work on the cheap or on the free for the long-term haul of the field.
And I think once there's some stabilization in the growth rate, if there's some stabilization that's in the future, I don't know if that's going to happen or not. It doesn't seem to be, but
I don't know.
I would hope that I had a friend of mine who is a doctor, and I forget I'm going to mess up the specifics. So if there's someone who is a medical doctor or knows a medical doctor, they're probably going to yell at their phone as I trudge my way through these particulars here. But basically, like, I think you go to medical school, you take classes and blah, blah, blah. You take your exams and whatnot. And I think you become an actual doctor, and then you go out in your residencies, and then you do like a rotation here, a rotation. So you do like pediatrics, you do oncology, you do orthopedics, and so on and so forth. So not only are you, and then after that, then you get kind of released to the world, if you will, after having satisfied various residency requirements as part of the program. There's a lot more to that, I'm sure, that I'm kind of glossing over or just plain ignorant of. But I would love to see something. And of course, there's all sorts of things that are challenging and perhaps need to be corrected in the education of doctors. But that part of it, having that be part of the program, I think in the same way like a licensed clinical psychologist does the APA internship, if you will. They go and they work at a teaching hospital or something along those lines, where again they get exposed to different types of rotate. They may do neuropsych, they may do behavioral pediatrics, they might do something else. That would be awesome if there was something like that for behavior analysts. Before you go and you finish your coursework, you take your exam, and then you work through a couple of rotations where you spend some time in schools doing kind of less intense tier 1 and tier 2 types of interventions. You do a severe behavior rotation, you do a feeding rotation, you do OBM or whatever. And then you see the application of the science across all these different things, and you probably have a better appreciation and understanding of the concepts and principles, and have a broader experience base to draw off of. So there's my wish for.
I love that. I think we talked about that. This might have been Matt Normand on the show. It was someone, and I know some of the folks who were in OBM kind of had some of those conversations of that idea of, it was more in terms of broadening the field of behavior analysis. But I love that idea of that fellowship, the residency kind of, just because I mean, Matt, you're probably like all of us who at some point in your career, you're like, I kind of want to switch to something that's not schools or that's not problem behavior. Or maybe I do want to do OBM, or I want to look more at the teaching aspect of things. But I don't know, it's going to be hard because I have to start at the bottom, and I don't know if I can pay my mortgage at a starting salary. So I guess I'm stuck doing what I'm doing now. And that's all right. I like it. I'm good at it. But getting a chance to try out some things and then have those extra opportunities to work and learn new skills and stretch some of your other muscles that you might not get every day in, say, an autism clinic or in a business world, but that you did get when you were vice versa at one of those locations in your residency. I think that'd be really cool for folks. Well, yeah, we'll see. That's a good wish.
Maybe. All right. So we'll close this on an aspirational note, I guess.
A lot of fun things to, well, not all fun. Many were sad, but then a lot of other positive things remembering about the year. So folks, we hope you all had a good 2023, and we all look forward to seeing you in 2024. But that wraps it up from ABA Inside Track and Behavioral Observations. And we'll be back with our regular episodes next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Happy New Year.
Bye.